Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. I'm Stu Hardy, joined as always by Derek Brissett. Derek, hope you enjoyed the long weekend. We got to enjoy another Arrows game, as well as the other games of MLR and the Vancouver Sevens. What did you make of this weekend?
Yeah, the weekend was good. Obviously, tons of rugby. A little bit, as you said, holiday weekend, so some family time mixed in between the rugby there. The weekend was great. I am just absolutely. Why is it snowing?
No idea. It is currently Monday, the 18th of April, and it is snowing.
It's snowing. Why? What is this? And it's like
Jesus has risen, the snow has fallen.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the old holiday classic, right? I'm dreaming of a white Easter.
Yeah.
It's not even like it's like I'm used to like the random like, oh, it's gonna snow a little bit, melts instantly. There's like a good like, I don't know, I guess what, like 2-3 inches of snow outside right now.
Yeah, I've no idea what's going on. Climate change is real, and the future looks interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I have no idea. So I was like, I don't know. So good weekend. I'm kind of disappointed by that. I'm also disappointed that Moon Knight has continued to not have any rugby references in it.
Yeah,
despite British
maybe
characters.
Next week,
maybe next episode. That's what I'm hoping for. But so the snow and lack of rugby references in Moon Knight continue to disappoint me. But yeah, no, crazy. Imagine like it would be hilarious if the Arrows had to like play in this. Like if this was just 2 days ago when we were at the game, like it was nice and sunny. I wasn't even wearing a jacket outside. I just had like a sweater on. It was great. And now it's snowing.
Yeah, I think the game started pretty quiet, but then it got a bit windy, and I think a few people were getting their jackets on or purchasing their Arrows hoodies from the Toronto Arrows shop.
Yeah, that's the smart thing. Is like think about it. They should be stocked up on the winter jackets and the toques at the game just in case it starts randomly snowing. And we'll get some of that merchandise sales up just from necessity of the mass weather turns that we get here living in Southern Ontario.
Yeah, well, speaking of the game, I think it's time to talk about the Arrows versus NOLA matchup. So, before we begin the game itself, we have to talk about NOLA's lineup, because there was a very last-minute change for the number 10, wasn't there, Derek?
Yeah, I kind of I wanted to bring this up because I think it comes on the backs of Friday prior to the game, or prior to, I guess, every game in the MLR this weekend. The Rugby Network put out that clip of George Killebrew talking about players' names on the backs of jerseys and why he wants them. It's like a 45 to a minute long clip, I believe, 45 seconds to a minute. Mm-hmm. And, it's across all of the Rugby Network social media. And that obviously led to some debate about whether or not we should be putting names on the backs of jerseys in MLR and probably to a greater extent rugby leagues around the world.
Yes.
And, we've talked about this topic on our podcast before. And I think we're both in agreement that names on the backs of the jerseys is the way to go. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I was just I thought I would just double check and make sure that you're on the same page.
I'll be up before. I'd say probably around like 2020. I think the issue with having names on the back, which was emphasized with Austin, was it needs to be done well. Otherwise, it looks amateur. It looks bad.
Yeah.
However, since 2020, obviously, that game against Toronto at the start of the 2020 shortened season, Austin were going through a very fast turnaround from becoming Austin Herd to becoming the Gilgronis. New kits were being introduced. It wasn't just the names, it was the numbers as well that were coming off. It was a very rushed job that had to be rushed because of this. However, if you look at what's happened this year with both Austin and LA, their presentation is far more professional. The writing is uniform. It's very clear. There's no like light colors on white or dark colors on black. It allows names and numbers to be identified much better. So my position, as always, when I said why there shouldn't be names on the jersey, I said, oh, it's the tradition of no names because no one name is above the team. However, that tradition comes about from the amateur days when you were not getting paid, and therefore things like kit costs were very low. So you only had a certain number of jerseys available. And if one player wasn't playing, they'd have to wear the other jersey. Doesn't matter if they fit a medium and this jersey is a double XL, that's what you're wearing. But and you know, this debate was sparked on social media, especially on Twitter, and you know, you had people giving their opinions from both sides, and you know, every opinion is valid. Some people saying that yes, you have to follow a traditional thing. It's not about the player, it's about the position they play in and that number that represents. And then you have people who've come from North American sports background who say, if you want to build stars like they've done in the NBA, in the NHL, in MLB, so on and so forth, then having the names on them gives it a unique selling point. It also helps identify players to new fans, which I think is very valid. And so my thoughts on this is that if you are having an American league, you have to appeal to American fans, not just rugby fans. Yes, but well, no, that's what I mean. The Americas.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so that's kind of where the debate started, and I think this game between NOLA and Toronto, George Killebrew was the voiceover in that video. And I think if George Killebrew wants to make that happen, he needs to send video of this game to every single team in the league as an explanation for why they need this.
Yes.
Because so as you kind of mentioned, you talked about some of the tradition there, right? Rugby is obviously a very traditional sport, and a lot of those traditions are great. However, like I think at a certain point you kind of need to evolve a little bit. And I think we kind of reached that point, because I believe watching this game, as you kind of mentioned there, Stu, right? The argument, the idea that nobody's above the team, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't true anyways. I mean, it's from, especially not from a marketing standpoint anyways.
No.
But if you want to, like, if you take that argument, right? And it's true, it's 100% true that rugby, the numbers, unlike every other sport in the world, maybe in the world, I don't know, but unlike most of the North American sports that we're accustomed to, the NHL, Major League Baseball, NFL football, you know, so NBA basketball, so on, the numbers in rugby don't identify the individuals wearing the jersey. No. They just identify what position that player is playing, right? And you kind of brought up, you know, there's some people that, you know, love the tradition of rugby and want to defend that tradition of rugby. And I honestly totally get it. I totally get that, right? You're old school. You want to see no names on the back, the numbers 1 through 23 only, right? And there's nothing wrong with that opinion. That's like a solid, like there's nothing wrong with that. But I think at the same time, though, as cool as that tradition is in rugby, I also think it's absolutely detrimental to anybody's ability to market the game. Yeah. And I think you kind of look at, because I remember, like, you know, looking at some of the comments on, you know, the Rugby Network's various social media feeds, scrolling through this, some of the discussions that we got into over this. One of the things that was suggested by people was like, well, if you want to know who the players are, you should just look up the lineup card. And what this game presents to you is, well, what if the lineup card is wrong?
Yes.
Right. It doesn't help you at all. Like, so if you were to be like, you know, the story that George Killebrew told was he was at a game. There was a parent and a child. He was talking to. He asked the child who their favorite player was. The child couldn't come up with a name.
Yeah.
Right. And my initial response to that was like, okay, so the issue is that even if that child just said something to generic, like my favorite player is number 10, right? The issue is that number 10 could be a different guy next game.
Yes.
Right? The issue in this is like, if that child said my favorite player is number 10, I want to look up who that is, right? They would think they've been cheering for Robbie Coleman for the past 80 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And you look at the way that this game breaks out. So first of all, like, whatever the lineup change was, the fact that you don't notify the broadcast can't happen.
Yeah.
If you're Major League Rugby, right? Because it's like if you want to talk about building the game and growing and marketing and stuff, and it's like you have to get the players' names correct, right? You know what I mean, right? And like you have like it, which is important, but like you can't, like, what are you supposed to do if you don't tell the broadcast crew, right? Like it, and you know what I mean? Like it's. And that's what I mean. Like I think like Killebrew, if he wants names on the backs of jerseys, I think this is a good game to use as an example, right?
Yeah.
Because you probably have an hour, or maybe not an hour, but like 30 minutes of the game. So maybe an hour, 45 to an hour of real-time minutes, I guess, of, Jamie McKenzie and Brian Spanton referring to the NOLA's 10 as Robbie Coleman, right?
Yeah.
And in no way is it their fault. Nobody told them, right? So in no way is it their fault, but that is what illustrates the problem with, like, if you're trying to sell the game, it's like, how are new fans supposed to know who the players are when nobody knows who the players are?
Yes.
You're like nobody in general, like, because it's like, even like watching the game, it's kind of like, you could see some comments being like, there was some comments online just being like, I know enough to recognize that isn't Robbie Coleman, because Robbie Coleman has a distinctly different hairstyle than Nick Feeks. But I didn't know enough to be like, I don't know who that is though, but I know it's not Robbie Coleman. So but like, if diehard fans, if it's that tough to recognize like, what do you expect people to go off of if you don't like make announcements that you're changing your lineup?
Yeah.
Right. Like recognizing players.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's the thing as well.
New fans to recognize guys. Like,
because that's the thing. The last thing you want to give new fans
is to make it hard.
It's like, here's some homework you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's your favorite player? Number 9. Cool. Who are they?
Even picture like just a simple situation here. It's like, say you don't even notify the broadcast, which is crazy that they didn't get notified. That's can't happen. But like, it's crazy that they didn't get notified. But like, even if they weren't, if you have names on the backs of the jerseys, at least Jamie McKenzie and Brian Spanton can look down and see Feeks written on the back of the player, right? And make the adjustments and be like, oh, like there's obviously been some sort of late change or whatever, and figure it out. Because it's like the way NOLA, like the way that this happens, right? You don't know who's playing 10. Right. Feeks moved from 11 to 10. Right. So then your next question is who's playing 11. You eventually find out it's Ross Depperschmidt. The next question is who's wearing 22 sitting on the bench. Right. Ends up being Jenkins. But it's like, so you have like, it's a chain of like 3 guys that are just flat out wrong on the team sheet. And ultimately what this comes back to is it's like, there's always that question, right? It's like whenever, it kind of goes back to like one of the things, right? Whenever like a big name player signs an MLR, Foden, Bastereau, Nanu, Rob Shaw, whoever, right? Those like super Wasaki Nahalo signed with New York this week, right? That's a big one. We'll talk about that a bit later, I'm sure. But it's like whenever you have these big name players, the cynical point of view is that, well, no one in North America knows who they are.
Yes.
Right. And that's why I'm like, because it's like you could watch an All Blacks game and you're gonna have no idea who any of the players are unless you know the All Blacks. Like, unless you've been a fan for a while, right? Because they don't have, especially like, remember like even like the 2015 World Cup where they did like the blackest jersey ever. And like the players were even wearing the same boots. Like the boots were all black or whatever. It's like there was nothing to like distinguish players like from each other if you
I remember that
blatantly recognize them. And I think that's the right. And like, and you know what I mean? And if we're going to take that, if people take that view of it's like Nanu coming over isn't going to sell to like non-rugby fans because non-rugby fans have no idea who Ma Nanu is, right? It's like, what chance do non-rugby fans have at identifying the difference between Nick Feeks and Robbie Coleman without something? And I think it kind of goes back to because obviously let's go back to what you said earlier, Stu, especially from an MLR point of view. right? If you want to sell the game of rugby in North America, you have to take certain North American approaches to something.
I mean, like, just look at the fact that we have hydration breaks during MLR games.
And some ad money. It's nice.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing.
Alternate jersey. How many teams are pumping out alternate jerseys all the time?
Oh, yeah. I think every team's going to produce a city jersey.
Every team should. Every team, especially hey, Old Glory, you're going to win in them. Yeah. Alternate jerseys going.
Alternate? I think you mean only jersey.
Yeah, only jersey. Let's rock it. Cherry blossoms for the rest of the year, boys. Let's go. Okay, but the point being, right, is like if you look at North American sports and how we treat our athletes, right. The number is the biggest identifier for a lot of our athletes, right? You think, right? If I say number 99, who am I talking about, Stu? Oh, you're not.
I did.
Yeah, you're going to lose your Canadian citizenship.
Yeah, my connection's gone. You have to say number 12. 12, Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go. 12, Tom Brady. Stu, you're losing your Canadian citizenship.
99, Wayne Gretzky. I know all these things.
Okay, I was going to say, if you don't know the answer to this question, you're losing your Canadian citizenship, and you're also ruining my point, which is worse. But yeah, if you go that 12, Tom Brady, 99 is Gretzky, 23 is Jordan, right? Yeah. We look at this past weekend, April 15th, Jackie Robinson Day. What's the tribute to Jackie Robinson?
Everyone wears 42.
Years. Everyone wears 42 because that's how we associate the numbers. It's the number is everything.
Yeah.
Right. Even going back to most sports teams in North America, they have the names on the back. Tradition. It's been that way for a long time. A couple holdouts, for example, the New York Yankees, right? The difference though between the New York Yankees and say like a rugby team is that Aaron Judge is going to wear 99 every game.
Yeah.
Right. That's his number. It comes back to 99. There's two acceptable answers there, I guess, Stu. Just to trip you up, I'll give you another 99. But it's like Aaron Judge, Aaron Judge is number 99. Similarly, though, Derek Jeter for the Yankees was number 2. Right.
Yeah.
That whole right. So it's like you always knew who they were. And to kind of continue on that theme with Jeter being number 2, you'll notice that no Yankee wears the number 2 right now. Right, because in North American sports, one of the absolute highest honors that you can get from your team, whether it's baseball, hockey, whatever, is getting your number retired.
Yeah,
that is the biggest honor that you can get from your club, right?
Yes.
Toronto Maple Leafs, you cannot wear 13. You can't wear 93. You can't wear 1, 27, 14, so on, right? Because they're retired. To honor the great players that wore those numbers, right? Rugby, you can't do that.
No.
Right? The number, for all intents and purposes, from a marketing point of view, is useless. Right? It just identifies what position that you wear. Even further, for like marketing thing, it's like if you ever see like a hockey player sign an autograph, right? It'll be Sidney Crosby, and then they'll put a little 87 next to it, right? Because the number is tied. Similarly, do you know when, out of curiosity, Stu, do you know when Sidney Crosby's birthday is?
I do not, but please enlighten me.
Yeah, it's on his jersey. It's August 7th, 1987. That's why he wears the number, right? The only reason I know that is because he wears the numbers in every other sport can be so personalized to that player that they become attached to that player, and therefore fans become attached to him. Rugby obviously doesn't have that. And because rugby doesn't have that, there is no way to identify individual players in this game, right? Which I personally think is detrimental to marketing, because you don't necessarily, on any given day, whether the lineup sheet is correct or not, on any given game, you don't know who's wearing a jersey. Right. Even diehard fans. It's like, why do we make such a big deal about when teams put the lineups out? It's because even as diehard fans, you'll see that on social media, if a team hasn't put their lineup out in a timely fashion or when we expect it, people start at so-and-so team, where's your lineup? Because even as diehard fans going into a game, we don't know who's going to be wearing which number on a game by game basis. Right.
Yeah.
Which is a problem. And also, like, you go even kind of further into it. If we're talking about marketing, talking about circling back to that idea that like people in North America don't necessarily know who Ma'ananu is, right? And it's like, does that come from the fact that there's no true global superstar in rugby? True global, and I don't mean like Anton Dupont is super popular among rugby fans or something. I mean, like, even if you've never seen a game of rugby, you are aware of the existence of this player.
Yeah.
Right. Similar to like everybody knows who Serena Williams is, even if you don't watch tennis at all. Right.
Yeah.
But, is there one of those players? And it's the fact that there's nothing to identify these guys on individual levels. A part of that. I look at like other sports too, right? You look at boxing.
Yeah.
Right? In boxing, there is 2 people in the ring. Right. And even still, if you turn on a fight in the middle of the 6th round, right, you can easily identify who the fighters are because they have their names on the trunks.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy. Even, our old co-host, Dan.
Yeah.
And Murphy loved to randomly bring up curling on this podcast.
Yes.
So let's shout out curling, a sport that has 4 people on a team. They don't wear numbers. They wear cozy looking little like knit sweaters that still have their names on the back.
Yeah.
Right? There's still something to identify who is participating in the sport.
Yeah.
And to every comment that comes back as being like rugby is bigger than, the team is bigger than the players are big. It's like, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. It's like that attitude doesn't have to change.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like, football is a team game. Hockey is a team game.
Yeah.
Basketball, everything's a team. There's all soccer, the team games.
Yeah.
Right. But you can still market the players on an individual level, and you probably can succeed at that.
Yeah.
As George Killebrew said, he wants to create superstars. In order to create superstars, you have to know who the guys are. And I think even I guess my one final point would be like, I think, for example, a guy like, whether he's doing it on purpose or not, I think a guy like Andrew Quattrin is really smart. He's got a podcast talking about the Arrows and the teammates and stuff, but he also has a super unique hairstyle that Arrows fans pointed out that they saw him at a Blue Jays game because the Rogers broadcast happened to pan across him. Right. And everyone's like, that's Andrew Quattrin, because he has a very unique hairstyle right now. And it's like, when you watch, at least when you look at Andrew Quattrin has something about him that it's like, when you watch a rugby game, you know where Andrew Quattrin is at all times, because he's doing something to build up his own mark. Whether he's doing it on purpose or not, it helps. But it's like, you need names. Like, in all honesty, something would happen this past weekend with the NOLA lineup. Should be considered unacceptable from MLR standards.
Yes.
To not relay a significant lineup change to the broadcast, to the fans in attendance, to anybody else watching, shouldn't be considered acceptable if you're looking at growing the sport and creating superstars, creating named players.
Yeah.
The first step to that, in all honesty, and George, if you're listening to this or whatever, you're the commissioner, man. Next, make it a rule.
Yeah.
Make it a rule. Just be like, you have to put names on the backs.
Yeah.
And figure out if there's a money issue, figure out how to make it economically work. It also goes into the idea that fans, at the very least, be able to buy custom jerseys with players.
Yes. I think that's something that the league should be looking into. And who knows? Because if MLR wants to appeal to a North American audience, it needs to follow what North American sports fans are used to. But we have now talked about the jerseys for far too long. Let's talk about the actual game in which the jerseys were being worn. So, going into this game, Toronto and NOLA had played 5 games previously. NOLA had won 4, Toronto had won only 1. And each game had been within 8 points of either team. So the highest point difference was 8 points, and I think that was back in 2021, whereas Toronto 10, NOLA 18 or something. That was not the case for this game, because even though NOLA got the scoring started with a try from Cam Dolan, it quickly became Toronto's game. Toronto scored 8 tries in this game, all unique try scorers. First off was Salmon, then Tafuga, then Sheridan. And in the second half, we had Richardson, Keith, Dutoy, McCrory, and McRogers. 2 McRs in there. And there are a lot of tries I want to talk about. But the 2 that I want to focus on are in the second half with Keith and Dutoy. So Keith was from the line out. The line out was split. NOLA's defense 5 meters out was not in a position to do it. The line out went far. Keith barreled through the middle as the ball was passed back to him, able to cross over the line. This is something that has come out of like the All Blacks World Cup playbook from 2011.
Which means Carlos Spencer should have saw that coming.
He should have. It should have. And very disappointing from him. Absolutely for not being able to stop Cole Keith from barreling over the line. So if you want someone to blame NOLA, that's your guy.
Cole Keith too, man. Hottest try scorer in the league right now. He's got a little streak going.
Yeah, he's not doing too bad for himself. And then we had Dutoy. So this came from an assist from Sam Malcolm, who confused everyone. But this was obviously 4D chess from Sam Malcolm. Everyone thought he was going to kick between the posts and get a penalty. But we know that Sam's kicking accuracy is so good. We've heard from Andrew Ferguson of how he was able to hit that small mark 5 times in a row in training. He was clearly aiming to hit the post so that it would ricochet down. Dutoy would be able to collect it and he would be able to score the try, because you know what's better than 3 points? 5 points. And that was just fantastic to watch. That's been repeated on.
Man, it's amazing.
Rugby Network, MLR, the Arrow social media accounts as well. It's just fantastic to watch. And it's something that's happened in internationals as well. I remember Italy scoring a try like that in the Six Nations, I think, in either 2017 or 2018, ricocheting off the post and scoring a try against England to have them lead at the half. And then, of course, in the second half, England got wise to their schemes and was able to get the win. But, absolutely no quit from this team. Tafuga's try was just powering through, not letting any tackle connect and able to get the 7-pointer. Sheridan, again, excellent work from the backs to able to get the ball out to Sheridan.
That's another nasty assist from Malcolm too.
Yeah, that was
not quite as good as banking it off the post. But...
No, but you have to say that for special occasions. Richardson getting a try right from the start. Like I think that was within 90 seconds of the restart.
Yeah, that was pretty quick. Yeah.
McCrory getting his first try in Arrow's colours, although that was mainly done by the line break from Lonnie Falavia. And off to McCrory and under the post, another 7-pointer, not a problem. And then McRogers getting the final try for the Arrows.
Team lead now. Jack McRogers.
Jack McRogers, most tries scored this year. So the final score was Toronto 53, NOLA 36. And now we say that, obviously winning by 17 points is fantastic. However, I think the Arrows were pretty dismayed by how their defenses lapsed in the final 20 minutes, especially. If you look at the scoring chart, it was that NOLA were able to get tries in the 69th, 77th, and 80th minute. And it was the 77th minute try that guaranteed that NOLA would get the try bonus point.
Yeah.
So it's pretty concerning, because this has also been a case of, last week against DC, it was in discipline. This week it's defense. It's something beginning with a D that keeps coming back to bite the Arrows on the backside. But obviously, even if NOLA had won this game and won with a bonus point win, the Arrows would still be ahead. But, we are getting to the business end of the season. And even if you're not making the playoffs, it's going to be the difference for when you get up to like the draft pick and even if you're not doing draft picks, is then focusing on like trades you can get from the draft pick for the following season. So, you need to be able to ensure that your team can get where they need to be. Obviously, everyone wants to make the playoffs, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be able to, because obviously 13 doesn't fit into 6. Yeah, it's so it's a bit concerning at the moment. And, especially when it comes up against teams that have very little mercy. Well, I mean, the Eastern Conference as a whole has shown to be pretty merciless, especially when you look at teams like Atlanta, New England, even New York. Like, we know that if you give these teams an inch, they'll take a mile. And, as we're getting to the point where the Arrows know that if they want to make the playoffs, they have to be getting the bonus points wins. So, you can't be allowing teams that can severely punish you to get back into the game. And, when we're at the stadium, we can't obviously see what's on screen of what the Arrows need to do, but obviously playing for the full 80 minutes seems to be something that's been concerning over the past 2 weeks. And, this coming week, they're not going to be at home. They're not going to have home advantage. They're heading down to Houston. And, they need to ensure that when they're going down there, that they'll be able to put in the performance that, can get them a win, ideally a bonus point win, but they need to ensure that they're not letting Houston creep back into the game, especially within the final 20 minutes. That has happened this week and last week. And as we've seen from Houston this week, especially against LA, they're not a team to be trifled with. That's a team that LA has lost to at the start of the season and has only been able to beat them by 5 points. So Houston were able to get the losing bonus point against LA, the defending champions. So, on the whole, I want to be very positive. Obviously, it's the highest score.
Don't sound Toronto. Too positive.
I started positive, and now I've just been constructively criticizing, I believe, is the excuse I'll use. And, because we as fans, we obviously want to see the Arrows make the playoffs. We want to see them lift the shield. But in order to get to that point, they need to be able to tighten up their defenses when it comes to the final 20 minutes. They need to not give away any yellow cards. They need to not be giving away any silly penalties.
Their discipline was great in this game.
Exactly. Discipline was great. And then defense seemed to be lacking. So you need to be able to be hitting all these points carefully. You need to have cool heads. You need to have the gamesmanship to be in the right position as well for what you're trying to achieve. And, because I know we've been talking about New England are going to be facing New York twice between now and the end of the season. And, that will obviously, whichever way that goes, will benefit Toronto. But you don't want to be in a position where you're dependent on another team winning or losing to be able to make the playoffs. You want to be able to rubber stamp it yourself and be able to say right, no matter what the other teams do, we know we're in the quest for the shield. Something else I want to mention, NOLA put in a fantastic performance. Cam Dolan with the first point and the first score of the game. Cam Dolan, one of the most irritating players because he's so good. I think probably had the best gamesmanship out of any player in MLR, I'd say. And, especially well done to be able to captain NOLA for another year. Obviously, Wheeler, Tonga Uhia, who I believe got his 50th MLR cap this game.
Yeah,
is that correct?
And him and JP Duplessis both got
yes.
JP Duplessis was also very good in this game too. He just his opposite number happened to be the best player in the game though. But
I know, as in you do what you can with what's available to you. And obviously, well done. Mitch Vorelek had another fantastic game. Ronan Foley, again, possible contention for Man of the Match award. Disappointing to see Kyle Bailey hobble off after Salmon's try. But then
situation keeps on rolling.
Absolutely. But it also meant we got to see Tommy De La Vega play his first game for Toronto in Toronto much earlier off the bench, coming back from his injury.
Which is wild considering he's been on the team for 3 years, to really think about how long it's taken him to actually be able to play a game in Toronto.
Exactly.
Obviously, with a bunch of wild circumstances for that. But
yeah. Again, Sam Malcolm, fantastic assistance as always.
The front row.
Yeah, Weta Tafuga back from injury as well. The front row. Keith.
The front row's unreal right now.
Yeah, the front row and its replacement was phenomenal.
When I say the front row, I mean all 6 of them. They're
exactly.
Playing unreal right now.
Yeah, Keith, Quattrin, Salmon, and then Faleva, McRogers, Roland, all coming on, all doing. I mean, obviously, Faleva doing the business to help get the McCrory try.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, Salmon, Keith, and McRogers all have tries. Faleva set up another try. Quattrin was absolute money on line-out throws. Also not to mention just like his work rate is insane. Right. Same with McRogers. McRogers leads the team in try scoring right now. Wild. Reserve hooker leads the team in try scoring. Tyler Rowland too. He's been playing great. They're getting penalties at the scrum. They're doing well in the line at the set piece and the lineouts. Their work rates are off the charts. They're among the team leaders, and like those guys are among the team leaders game in, game out. In it might not be the same guy every game, but carries, carries, tackles, and stuff. Like they're playing phenomenal, and it's like they're playing, especially like the starters are going deep too, like 65. It's like 60, 65, 70-minute games sometimes. But like the reserve guys are coming on and making a huge impact too.
Also going to mention Donato and McCrory getting
killing it.
His first try for the Arrows, but obviously these guys coming in midway through the season, able to just slot in and just doing fantastic work. Yeah, absolutely. Also got a shout out for Nick Feeks for NOLA Gold for like being able to move into the fly half position, as well as Ross Depperschmidt for coming off the bench to start on the
obligatory
wing.
Eric Howard shout out too. He played.
Yeah, got a shout out there for Canadian Eric Howard.
He had the same issue as JP Duplessis in this game. Like he played really well. It's just too bad the guy across from him was better.
Yeah, I know it's a shame, but I think, it is what it is.
Yeah, like looking at this game, I think just as a whole, like it sounded like I got the feeling like doing some of the post-match interviews and stuff that the Arrows probably aren't thrilled about that late NOLA surge at the end, toward the end of the game. A couple tries there, one try that got called back by a TMO review for a forward pass as well. So it's like, there was that. I don't think they were overly thrilled about that late surge, because it's like obviously like they're probably more critical on themselves than anybody. Especially that's how coaching staffs and elite athletes are. So I mean, I'm sure they're going to kind of dissect that. It does make me kind of think that it's like I remember like when I was a kid, our local hockey arena had like this old, I think it was like an old Titan ad. Titan's the stick that Wayne Gretzky used to use way back in the day. And it basically, the ad was the best. It said, it's just a picture of the stick, and it said the best defense is a 10-goal lead. And that was the ad for this, right?
Yeah,
and,
that's fair.
So I was kind of like, looking at this is like, hey, I mean, they no. So I mean, I don't know. Yes, they need to look at some of those tries. Yes, it's probably not good that a lot of those tries were able to be scored by NOLA late in the game. But at the same time, when you start that, when like you won by 17, at no point during any of that any of those NOLA tries where I was like, this is making me nervous. No. It's like this game was very much well in hand, to the point where that NOLA comeback still fell 17 points short.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's so I mean, and I think that's where I kind of want to focus. The criticism of allowing the tries is valid. But like the attack in this game was phenomenal. When they got the ball in their hands. Obviously, it's the highest point total they've ever put up at home, so that's a fun little stat too. 8 tries, 8 different try scores. Coming in from a variety of ways. You had obviously Salmon with the maul, right on the back of a maul. Tafuga set piece at the scrum, right? Kind of set that out. Like I said, it was like, and as you mentioned, just runs over Nick Feeks.
Yeah.
Just runs them over. And the big thing too is like Sheridan, again, another nice play, working through some phases. They get the ball out. The forwards doing a lot of great work until Malcolm sees the opening, gets the ball out to the wing. Richardson, again, you mentioned how quick that was. The Keith try, excellent line out play. A different way of scoring at the line out than Salmon. Detroit, just has, I'm sure that's exactly how Peter Smith drew that play up.
Yeah.
And then, McCrory, again, phase work, break, finding holes. McRogers going back to the line out ball, right? So they're scoring tries in a lot of different ways. The attack is working really well. The big turning point of this game, too, like being realistic. And I know it never feels this way when it happens over halftime. It never feels like it when it's over halftime. But the Arrows scored 4 tries in just under 10 minutes.
Yeah,
in this game, right? Between, I think, Tafuga's try is like the 35th, 36th minute, and then Cole Keith scored in like the 45th.
Yeah.
Right. So Richard Sheridan and those the biggest momentum shifters in any sport is in rugby and probably a handful of other sports too. If you score right before the break or right after the break, it's a huge momentum shift. If you score right before and right after, it's a massive momentum shift, right? And you add in, they scored 4 tries in 10 minutes, which gave them that wide lead that, despite NOLA's best efforts, they weren't able to come back from. I think overall, I mean, I think you do have a little bit, you should be a little, I don't think they're going to be happy looking at the tape of how those tries got scored. Right. And I don't think they're going to be happy necessarily looking at the tape of the one that didn't get scored either. Right. Even though, it's nice to be on the right side of a TMO call for once, but I don't think they're going to be super thrilled about even that. But, so I mean, there's probably going to be some film sessions looking at those tries. But, like I said, it's like that sign at the rink said, it's like best defense is an insane lead, which could help. And it's, the offense rolling like that. And, I think like the Arrows defense still played really well. They shut down a lot of NOLA opportunities and stuff. It just seemed like, toward the end of the game, not quite to the, but like, it is a thing. Like the players were talking about that after the game, right? Both Thomas Della Vega and Lucas Rumball, when I did my post-match interviews with it, that was like one of their key things that they brought up that they viewed that needs to be worked on. Right. So I agree with you in that sense. I'm trying to put the positive spin on it. That'd be like, hey, even with that, even if you're like, that's the best thing for a team. I think it's like you win that big and you're like, we can play a lot better than this.
Yeah.
It's a good mentality to see that, like, right. It's like the team's still growing. Playoff race. Shall we get into that? Because the playoff race is getting a little interesting now too.
It is. We're now also in the stage where we are beginning to mathematically eliminate certain teams from this.
We're only really eliminating Dallas and DC at this point in time, though. Maybe Utah.
No, yeah, as in, so mathematically, if Dallas lose and I believe it's Seattle or San Diego win with a bonus point, then Dallas officially becomes the first team eliminated from playoff contention. And then I think Dallas's result this weekend, which we'll get to later, keeps their hopes alive a little bit longer. But if we're talking about like how the swing of momentum is going, it seems as though that Utah is out of this playoff race for.
Dallas is the only team in jeopardy of being actually mathematically eliminated right now, though, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. I think kind of like looking at it, the East is I think the East is very interesting. I mean, both conferences are super tight. The West right now, you got Austin, LA, and then you have 3 5-5 teams where the only thing that separates them is the amount of bonus points that they have. And then you got Utah and Dallas at the bottom of the table. Toronto, obviously, with the win, and all 3 of New England, Atlanta, and New York being on a bye week, have now the bonus point win, have now moved into 3rd place. They have 30 points, which is them at 6-4 has 30 points, which is tied with New York 6-3 and 30 points. The difference, though, thanks to New York getting absolutely slaughtered by LA 2 weeks ago, is that the Arrows have a better point differential. They're plus 14, New York's plus 6. So that's the separator right now. And as we kind of mentioned, it's so obviously, like you mentioned, Houston, definitely not the SaberCats of old. That's going to be a huge game because this is a huge game as probably as big as a cross-conference game can possibly be at this stage of the season, between Houston and Toronto, because both teams are just, at the edge of the playoff race or whatever, trying to claw their way into the playoffs permanently. And yeah, so that's going to be an absolutely massive game for Toronto down in Houston. And yeah, like you said, like Houston has been playing well. They're definitely not the SaberCats of old, but they're also, similar to but they're also like barely hanging on to 500 too. That's just it's kind of wild how the teams in the West are all kind of like, there's only 2 teams above 500 in the 7-team Western Conference, right? So
yeah,
it's kind of a wild situation that they got going there versus there's 4 teams above 500 in the East, which has 1 less team, right? So, so it's kind of wild looking at that, but I think I want to ask you something though. If we're as Toronto Arrows fans right now, we're looking at a game this week in which New England plays New York.
Yes.
Just I'm not asking for a prediction, but as an Arrows fan, who do you want to see win this game? I'm not going to give you the cop out of picking draw either, because that's probably real.
That's what you'd pick.
Well, no, but I'm like, I don't even know if a draw is the best outcome. I don't know if you want both teams getting points. Like, no. You know what I mean?
I mean, at this stage in the competition, it's also a case of if New England win, they extend their position at the top of the Eastern Conference, which means it's more than likely that they'll be getting the conference final slot.
But if
New York win, then they'll be pushing Toronto Arrows out of playoff contention altogether, or challenging Toronto for their playoff position. So it's a question of, do you want to risk it to try and make it further into the Eastern Conference to be able to get closer to either a home semi-final berth or final berth, or do you just need to get into the playoff race as a whole? So on that regard, because Toronto are currently 3rd in the East and they're tied on points with New York, who have a game in hand at this moment in time, I think it is probably for Toronto's best interest that it's New England that wins this game, ideally with a margin that denies New York any losing bonus point. Because again, you want to be in a position where it's Toronto doing their work to make it further up. You don't want to be relying on other teams to do the work for you.
I don't think the Arrows are in like a position of like scoreboard watching at this point in time. I think, like you said, it's like they are officially in a playoff spot as it stands right now. As you mentioned, there's a game in hand on them, but like, I don't think, knowing that they still have to play all 3 of these teams, Also knowing that all three of the teams of New England, ATL, and New York all have to play each other in various combinations and amounts of games, right? With 6 games remaining for the Arrows, this you're not in we need this team to win yet. We're not. You're not. But I think I kind of agree with the idea of if New England pulls away, they pull away or whatever. I think I'd like to see New York kind of hang out at the bottom still and give the Arrows the opportunity to come out of their own bye week 2 weeks from now, because the Arrows are going to come out of their bye week and play New York at home.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to get the table being level as far as the games played, regardless of what the outcomes are this weekend. Right. So an Arrows win against Houston, so keeping the positive spin going here, an Arrows win against Houston with a New York loss, right, will then, with a New York loss to, who does New York play during the Arrows bye week?
NOLA.
Okay. So that's a good game too. But so an Arrows win against Houston with a New York loss against New England, and then whatever happens in New York NOLA, right? The Arrows there's a possibility that the Arrows and New York come into their game, I believe in May 8th, Mother's Day, I think it is, in Toronto, right? They could be going into that. There's a possibility that they're going into that game with the same record, right? With the same amount of games played too. Right. So you go into that, and then that game right now is absolutely massive given what the standings look like right now.
Yeah.
That's going to be wild. Get your tickets.
Yes.
Go to the arrows.com.
You can get your tickets from TorontoArrows.com.
That's going to be amazing. Yeah, so that game's going to be wild. So, I mean,
All right. Okay, we've been talking about the future a bit too much. We have to talk about the other games that happened this weekend. And we're starting off with the Good Friday fixture between DC and Utah. And, glory comes every now and again. And as we were saying, they were wearing their Japanese blossom kits as part of the city jerseys that MLR seems to be doing this season. And we had DC hosting Utah coming off their bye week. What can I say? It started off and it seemed to be, same old story. Utah getting the first score in the 6th minute. And then we had Junior Saru scoring the first try for DC. Conversion gets missed. Next thing that happens, Utah get a penalty and they're back in the lead. They're still in the lead because, the first try was a 7-pointer. It's another try for DC, so they're calling back, and another conversion miss, so it's 10 all. And then 3 minutes later, it's another penalty for Utah. And, so we go into the break, it's 10-13. And then we're talking about momentum of scoring before or after the game, after halftime. Well, 2 minutes after halftime, Mikey Te'o scores for Utah, racks the points up. Next thing you know, we have another penalty for Utah as well, taking them to 21. Then we have Jameson Fernandez-Schultz back from his suspension, scoring a try in the 60th minute, and then
the cherry blossom scrum cap too. He went all out with the style.
So before Fernandez-Schultz's try, Utah got a yellow card to Tua Barrow just a minute earlier, and then Utah get another yellow card in the 74th minute, meaning that they will end the game with 14 players. This allows Coleman to get over the whitewash in the 76th minute and allows the only conversion of the game to give DC a 1-point lead. The clock goes red, and Utah and DC are doing a bit of back and forth. DC concede a penalty within penalty range. Whiting steps up, kicks the ball, it goes wide. DC get their first win of the season in week 10. DC 22, Utah 21.
Yeah. So DC, we're totally rocking the cherry blossom kits all year now.
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
definitely it. But yeah, gutsy win from Old Glory, man. I think we mentioned last week it was like we were like the way they're playing, how close they played.
Yeah, the momentum
How
was
close they played New
definitely
York,
with them.
how close they played Toronto. With that comeback attempt that fell short. Like the win was coming, and you know what? I know Mock was kind of in the bin earlier. They had to bring on the prop back on. What an absolutely massive scrum win against the feed to set up Coleman's try.
Yeah,
That was phenomenal. Just absolutely massive. And then, yeah, man, everybody was holding their breath on that penalty call, though. Like,
absolutely.
You could see
the reaction from
watch it, yeah,
fans in the crowd, the players on the
There's-
pitch, even the Monument Man on Twitter, like stopped tweeting for a solid 10 minutes, and I was pretty sure they'd have a heart attack or something.
But if watching the video, there's a handful of like Old Glory players that are not watching that kick.
Oh, absolutely.
They're just like, yeah, it's which could be a bad thing as a Giuseppe Detroit kind of what he proved in this game. Like you should pay attention to those kicks. But yeah, but just it's just great to see them get a win, man. Like, I mean,
yeah,
I know, like, I know this is it's pro sports. Every year there's going to be a champion. Every year someone's going to finish last. It's just the way it is. But man, you never want to see anybody go winless though.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like it is like as a fan, like I guess more as I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm a neutral fan. I guess I'm an Arrows fan, but like
as an MLR fan.
Yeah, as an MLR fan. Thank you, Stu. That's the wording I'm looking for. Like, I'm happy to see them get a win.
Yeah.
It's nice. Good for them. They should be wearing the cherry blossom kit for the rest of the year.
Absolutely.
The new kit might work, man. It didn't work for Dallas, but did you notice that Utah dropped their new kit today?
Yes.
So that's what's going to pull them out as well. By the way, that kit is amazing.
All right.
The snow, the green trees, it's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to move on to the next game that was up there. Well, there were two games that held at the same time, so we'll be on the Pacific Coast, and we'll go with LA. So they were hosting Houston. After their dominant performance over New York, was it going to be more of the same, or was Houston going to get and do the double over LA as they had at the start of the season? And we've obviously mentioned it earlier. This is a game that proved that even though LA did win, Houston can still boss it with like the big guys of the league. They've come a long way. We talk about teams not you never want to see a team go without a win all season, but Houston had the most washouts last season with 2 games in which I think it was like 2 or 3 games that they maybe didn't score a single point. And
they were bad last year.
Yeah, so obviously getting the win over the defending champions at the start of the season was a great way to start the season. And this is absolutely a great game as well. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about the unfortunate news that sole Canadian for Houston, Robbie Povey, picked up a knee injury right at the start of the game. So it looks like there'll be no Canadian representation from Houston next week, which is disappointing, but obviously wishing Robbie the swiftest of recoveries, and we hope to see him back before the end of the season. But if not, hope you recover as soon as possible. If we can't see you in a Sabercats jersey, we want to see you in a Canadian jersey as soon as possible as well. Consistent pressure that LA put on Houston, allowing them it's only 4 tries were scored, and they were shared between both teams with a penalty try from scrum infringements, not scum, and Hanko Germishes getting the second try in the like 10 minutes later in the first half. And then LA were like held for the remainder of the scoring opportunity. The only other scores was Christian Dyer scoring a try in the 52nd minute for Houston, and then after De Beer got yellow carded, Burton was able to score the only penalty of the game for LA, which just puts it out of contention, really. They're able to just carry on from there. Final score, LA 17, Houston 12. So, yeah, this definitely looks like it's going to be a tough encounter when the Toronto boys head down to Texas next week.
Yeah, no, it should be a good game, good test. LA, too, on fire right now, 5 in a row. Just struggled a little bit out the gate, had some injury issues, but I guess now that they're getting some guys back and stuff too, right? They look like they're returning to the dominant form that they were last year. Adam Gilchrist's team's owning the top of the table at the moment.
Well, top of the West at the moment.
Top of the
sure. Anyway, so we carry along the Pacific Coast a bit north to Starfire Stadium, where, you know, if the LA Houston game was all about defensive efforts, then Seawolves Legion was all about attacking efforts, because
and behind the back passes.
Yeah. Well, that's part of attacking play as well. You know, this was a tri-fest from pretty much like quarter way through the game onwards. You had Seattle scoring 4 tries, San Diego scoring 5. Only one of which was a 7-pointer. You know, it comes down to discipline. San Diego got a yellow card in the 59th minute, which allowed a penalty for Creel to be scored in the 62nd. And yeah, this was just an insane game, because it was like end-to-end stuff. Sifu scored the first try of the game in the 34th minute, and then Malcolm scored his first try in the 27th. And you just get right to the end, and it looks like Seattle had their final scoring opportunity in the 62nd minute with that Creel try. And then in 69th, Terori scored, and then Malcolm got his second. And San Diego realized that, you know, they have 5 minutes to potentially win the game. You know, penalty, drop goal, try, anything that can happen. And then it's that classic thing from Seattle. Their seawall held out for the final 4 or 5 minutes until the clock went red, kicked it out into touch. And yeah, it's one that you want to sit back from, and even as a neutral fan, just take a little breather just to get that all out of you. The one disappointing thing I've got to mention about this game, though, was the lack of Canadians. Reed Watkins, Pat Lynott, and Josh Thiel listed for Seattle and San Diego respectively, but didn't feature in the game. Although that said, we had Michael Smith starting and replaced by Chris Robshaw in the 55th minute, with Jason Higgins doing the full 80 for San Diego. And we also had Travis Larson come off the bench for the final 12 minutes, replacing Andrew Duatalo. So yeah, you know, well done for Higgins for doing the full 80, and and also Chris Robshaw helped set up one of those final 2 tries for San Diego. So, you know, the old dog still got some bite left in him.
Yeah, Michael Smith taught him everything he knows.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, man, another game. It's like, it shows you how important kicks are, right? Like,
yeah,
Joe Peterson 1 for 4 on conversions.
Yeah, that's a
2-point game, man. Versus Alatimu, 4 for 4 on conversions, 2 for 2 on penalties.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And one unreal behind the back pass to Steffels try.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the game already, the highlights are on YouTube and the Rugby Network. Definitely one to watch. Okay, and then we come to the final game of the week, and this was another Texan tussle.
Are we going to do a full autopsy here? Or are we just going to be like, yeah, that's the blowout?
Yeah, they're dead. There we go. Autopsy done. Yeah. So yeah, as in, this was the thing.
This was a case of the new kit's not working.
Yeah.
Well, on the plus side for the Dallas Jackals, you have the best kit in the league, so that's cool.
Yeah, well, it seems as though a team that has been hampered by injury has just had more and more come on, with Alejandro Torres going off the field with a knee injury, and that meant that Pennell, who was fullback, moved to fly half. Campbell Johnson dropped to fullback, and Nondeo came from the bench to to make his MLR debut in the midfield. And this was, I think, in the second minute of the game. Absolutely terrible.
Well, even at that too, didn't Asa Carter just came over as part of like the cover, like the loan he was loaned from Austin after that walkway accident.
Yeah.
And he got hurt in this game too.
Yeah.
The Jackals just can't catch a break, man.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, even during the game, Dallas scored a try that was ruled by the TMO to have been a knock on off the foot of an Austin player, which I've already said that if we're gonna have TMO and we're gonna have these decisions that can, in this case, doesn't change the outcome of the game.
It matters.
It matters, and I think it's time for not only the teams but the league and even the unions so the USA Rugby and Rugby Canada needs to do a firm investment into the development and training of referees, not just on the field but also TMO as well, because that was a try clear as day. It should be Austin 57, Dallas 10, but it's Dallas 3 instead.
Yeah, I think man, yeah, I wish they got that one. Yeah, like I said though, that's the exact epitome of this team cannot catch a break.
Yeah.
Right. And it's definitely initially goes down on the Austin defender's foot, but then he kind of shifts it off and looks to ground it. But it is what it is. The one thing though, I will, it's like every point does matter because point differential is a big tiebreaker in this league and can determine final standing spots. So even that try, would that affect the overall outcome of this game? No. But would it affect Austin's point differential? Yes. Which could be something that comes into play. Who knows? Right. So like you do have to get those things right. I think just overall is from the TMO, it's definitely nice to have it in the league. But there's some kinks that still need to be worked out on. And I believe that was something in the Rugby Canada, actual Rugby Canada, high performance review too, was they a different investment into more investment into the officiating and stuff too, which I think overall, over the past 5 years, and the officials in MLR have gotten a lot better. And I would imagine that you give TMO, the TMOs time, you give them proper training and stuff, it'll become a smooth process. I mean, I think though, the important thing is the important thing to remember too is even in the Premiership or the World Cup or the leagues and competitions that have been using TMO a lot longer. Not every TMO call is going to be perfect anyways, just not every ref decision will be perfect, but you always want to kind of minimize that. But I don't know if it just feels, I don't know if this is really the call to be having that conversation on, but it just feels like nothing's going Dallas's way at the moment.
Yeah, it's a shame. Okay, we're gonna quickly blitz through the sevens that happened this weekend over in Vancouver. But let's focus on the men's competition that happened. So we start off with a very difficult pool opening round against Australia, 26-10, 2 tries by Russell and Thiel. Then a loss to South Africa in the blitz box, 19-14. Richard and Coates able to score tries, but fortunately South Africa able to nail that one. And then finally the first win of the weekend against Spain, 21-26. with tries from Richard, Ergus, Prevost, and Webster. Then on the Sunday, we moved into the playoffs for the 9th place. I believe it's the 9th place final. And for that, we had Canada face against Japan, a dominant win, 29-5 to the Canadians, with Burner, Thiel, and Ngongo scoring tries and Russell scoring 2. Then they had a close fixture against Scotland, winning that game 22-26, with Webster scoring 2 tries, Thiel and Russell scoring 1 each. And then they face Ireland for the 9th place final, and unfortunately it was a loss, The final score 7-17, with Ngongo being the only try scorer from that game. And that put Canada in the final place of 10th in the weekend's competition. Also got to mention that Argentina won the gold medal match in the cup final, beating Fiji 29-10. Australia, who Canada played in that opening game, finished third. So, not too bad. And South Africa finishing fifth. But there was a big announcement that happened in the world of sevens rugby and men's sevens especially, as Dan Norton announced that he would be retiring following the conclusion of the Vancouver Sevens. Dan Norton, not only a legend for England sevens, but world sevens as a whole. The top try scorer in his career with 358 tries, scored over 470 matches in 91 competitions. And Dan Norton competed in both the 2016 and 2021 Olympics, receiving the silver medal 2016 Olympic Games. So I know Dan is a huge fan of the podcast, obviously. Just want to wish him all the best in retirement. And thank you for everything you've done for sevens and rugby as a whole.
Yeah, what a legend. It'd be crazy to look back on that. I think his last time on the pitch was in Canada. So should be man, yeah, just one of the greatest players of all time, man. So it's definitely he got a real nice ovation from that Vancouver crowd too. So anytime a player of that magnitude hangs them up, it's definitely noteworthy. And yeah, unreal career. Looked like a real fun tournament. Nice to see Brock Webster just scoring tries wherever he goes this year. That's nice. Alex Russell also, as the former Arrows, continue to contribute to Rugby Canada's try scoring totals at these 7 tournaments.
Yeah.
So that was real good to see. Nice W over Scotland toward the end of the tournament too. Played South Africa real tight. It was a good tournament. Nice to see Canada put in a good showing, even if
these guys are obviously
it's building.
It's building the new team for
they're missing
next Olympics, stuff the World Cup later this year, and the Commonwealth Games. So it'll be interesting to see how the lads progress. All right. So if you are looking to watch any rugby this weekend, we have good news because we know where it's on. If you are looking to watch the Women's Six Nations, you can watch that on DAZN. The Premiership and URC return after the latest round of the Champions and Challenge Cup, and you can find that on Sportsnet. If you are looking for the Super Rugby Pacific competition, you can find that on TSN. Japan League One and other non-Arrows MLR games are available on the Rugby Network. And the Arrows versus Houston match will be this Saturday at 8 p.m. on the TSN app and TSN website. Which comes to our predictions for round 12. And I am feeling in a good mood because I went 5-0 last round.
There you go.
So I expect to go 0-5. Well, 0-6 this round. So, but the first game we have up, 3 games we have at 8 p.m. Eastern Time this Saturday. Great work, MLR.
Yeah. Scheduling games is hard. It's fine.
The first game we have is Houston versus Toronto. Derek, who are you picking?
Toronto. Arrows. Keep this rolling.
Absolutely. Yeah, got to keep the momentum going. I know Houston are going to be far different from when they faced them in 2019 and 2021.
They're still going to lose. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, next up, we have NOLA versus Austin. So who have you got for this one?
I think I'm at this point in the season where it's like I want to make all my picks based on what would help the Arrows the most. So all Eastern Conference teams can lose to Western Conference teams now. So I'll take Austin.
Fair enough. Austin it is. And, obviously that dominant performance against Dallas and NOLA just being on another losing game, even though they did get the try bonus point, I will go with Austin as well. Okay, the third game that is happening this Saturday at 8 p.m. is DC versus Dallas. Now, DC have finally got the win. Derek, you did say you didn't want to see a team go winless this season.
I guess I don't want to see a team go winless, and I guess based on the logic I just presented for the NOLA Austin game there, Yeah, I guess I'll go Dallas based on my logic there. Yeah, I don't want to see a team go winless and don't want to see any teams in the Eastern Conference win games right now. So let's go Dallas.
Right.
Why not?
All right. Well, as you said, it seems as though Dallas can't catch a break.
No, they can't. No, they can't at all.
No. And in that case, then they won't get a break from me. So I will be going with DC.
I'm just giving Dallas support now.
I know. Well,
somebody has
to. You gotta wear your cap during that game. You just have to now.
Yeah, it's at some point. Someone has to be nice to them.
All right, and then we have Utah versus Seattle. This will be held at Zions Bank Stadium, and Utah did push DC close, just in discipline. They've got a new coach as well, or new coaching structure, I should say. However, Seattle, that seawall seems to have returned. And, I still think there are a few things that Utah need to iron out that Seattle can capitalize on. So I will be going with Seattle.
I think I'm going to agree with you on that one, Seattle.
All right, fair enough. Okay, now, Derek, unfortunately, it's you can't pick an Eastern team to lose to a Western team because there's two Eastern teams playing. We have New York hosting New England at JFK Stadium.
I think, I'm still going to pick this based on what I'm thinking might be the best for the Arrows' overall outlook, which, as we kind of talked about, might be for New England to just win this game and hold New York down the table here. So I think I'll pick New England. Also, I just in general, I think New England's just been playing out of their mind this year. Coming off a bye week too. Their defense is goddamn incredible. So it should be fun though. Big rivalry game. Those ones are always tough to pick too.
Yeah. So I have to say, so again, if we're choosing the result that benefits Toronto the most, I think again, it has to be, I have to look at the long-term picture. And yes, this may help cement New England to get the East Conference home stadium, but you'd at least want to be in the competition to begin with. So I will also pick New England. And the final game of the weekend, it is San Diego hosting Atlanta.
Oh, wow. Oh, you know what? I guess my logic's going to continue. Let's go Legion. Why not?
Going with the Legion? Makes sense.
Why not?
I'm
probably not doing too well this week. Don't pick with your heart. Don't bet with your heart. It's bad.
Yeah. I'm not entirely 100% sure on because, okay, San Diego lost, but they did put in a rousing effort at the end. And Atlanta, they can have instances of doing well, and then they'll just falter.
Atlanta's better than San Diego.
Yeah. So ultimately, and also just to be different, I will go and pick Atlanta.
Pick Atlanta. That's the smart one. Yeah.
All right. So those are our picks for round 12. And if you want to see the Two Needs predictions, you can find that on our TikTok account, which is TikTok at the Rouge Rugby. In fact, across all social media platforms, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at the Rouge Rugby. If you enjoyed listening to this episode of the podcast, you can listen to more on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor FM at the Rouge Rugby. And if you'd like to see our beautiful faces, you can do so on our YouTube channel, again, at the Rouge Rugby. Derek, if people want to find you, where can they do so?
At Brissette the Jet across all social media platforms.
I'm also across all social media platforms, but mainly Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me at Hardman, spelled at H4RDMAN. Well, Derek, thank you for joining me for another episode, and thank you all for joining us. We hope you can join us again next time.